and welcome back. Today I come back with very important lesson, which is the useful genetic vocabulary and the three laws of heredity, such as law of dominancy, law of segregation, and the law of independent assortments. If you think this video is good, please like and comment it, and if you have a question regarding the lesson, put it in the comment section and I will feedback as much as possible. Let us start from the useful genetic vocabulary. The very important useful genetic vocabulary. Here there is very important genetic vocabulary. The first genetic vocabulary is that homozygous and heterozygous. Homozygous means when an organism with two identical alleles for a character is said to be homozygous for a gene controlling that character. So when an organism is receive two identical alleles for the gene controlling that character, we can say there is homozygous for that character. That means when it receives tall or short for the character of a plant height, for example. And the organism that receive different allele for the gene that controlling that character is known as what? Heterozygous. Heterozygous. That means an organism, for example, for the character of plant height, an organism is receiving here tall and short. This is what? Heterozygous allele or heterozygous gene. So the word homozygous and heterozygous means when an organism is receiving the allele with the similar allele for gene that controlling that character, we can say the trait is homozygous. And when an organism is receiving an allele with different, we say that that trait is heterozygous for that trait. An organism is heterozygous for that trait. The other important thing is here phenotype and genotype. Phenotype and genotype. Phenotype means a physical appearance of an organism which is visible. When we observe an organism physically, we can see by the naked eye an organism is shown physically, whether it is tall or short. We can see it by the naked eye. The physical appearance of an organism is so known as what? A phenotype is. And the genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism which is invisible or it is unshown. We cannot see this character by naked eye. Why? Because it is expressed by the quality, or it is not expressed by color or by height, or it is uncountable. The genotype of an organism is what? It is accountable, just like a phenotypic. This phenotype is expressed maybe by the numbers, by the color, by the height, or by the different things. But the genotype is not expressed by such things. Just it is expressed by the quality, or it is not invisible by naked eye. The other important vocabulary is that dihybrid cross and monohybrid cross. Dihybrid cross and monohybrid cross. Dihybrid cross is a cross between two different parents which have what? With a single characters. Different parent which have a single characters. When we say single character, maybe it is the plant height, the character of a plant height, the character of a flower color, the character of a pod shape, but just individually. When we cross individually these characters, we can say it is a monohybrid cross. When we cross these characters, with together, for example, when we cross the plant height with the flower color, for example, when we cross the plant height with flower color, we can say this is a dihybrid crosses. But when we say monohybrid cross, we can just cross only for the character of plant height, or for the plant character for the plant color or flower colors. But when you say dihybrid cross, we can cross these two characters together. The other important thing is allele and the locus. When you say allele is an alternative version of a gene, and the locus is a specific place in which a gene is resided on it. Yeah, on what? On a specific chromosomes. A place in which an allele is resided on in a specific chromosome is known as a locus, and an allele is an alternative version of a gene. But a gene is also a heritable factor of an organism. The other important genetic vocabulary is that a Punnett square. Yeah, Punnett square. Punnett square is Punnett square is a diagram that is used for predicting the result of genetic cross between individual of a non-genetic. Yeah, it is a diagram which is used for the result of a genetic cross between individual of a genetic crosses. Yeah, let us see the three laws of heredity. The first law for heredity is law of dominancy, law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. We can see each of them one by one. Yeah, so there are three laws of heredity: law of dominancy, law of segregation, and a law of independent assortment. Let us see each of them one by one. An organism or a trait can be controlled by two factors. That factor is a dominant and a recessive. To be a dominant trait, an organism show if the offspring inherit at least one dominant factor from one parentage. Yeah, when we say one parentage, it may be the mother or the father. When an organism is receive at least one dominant allele from mother or from father, we can say the trait is dominant for that character. But when we say recessive, the trait shows only if the offspring inherit two recessive factors from each of parents. When you say from each of parents, both from mother and from father. From both father and the mother, when a trait is received or inherits two recessive allele, the trait is recessive. We say that trait is recessive for that character. That means when it receives, for example, for the character of plantaid, when the trait is received both short from father and short from mother, we can say this trait is recessive. But when the trait is received or inherit tall from father and tall from mother, we can say this trait is dominant. And when the trait is received tall from father and short from mother, we can say this trait is also a recessive. Why? Because here it receives at least one dominant allele from one parent. Yeah. So here in this cross between two purple flower, here there is a cross between two purple flower pea plants. One quarter of offspring have white flower here, or 1/4 of the offspring have what? White flower. But here 3/4 of the offspring is what? Purple color. The 3/4 of the offspring have what? A purple color. Based on this information, what do you think? Which is a dominant, white or purple flower? And how do you can know this? How do you know this? Which one is a dominant? Which one is a recessive? Is a white is a dominant or a purple one is a dominant? Let us see it. Here, the offspring of a purple flower pea plant and a white flowered pea plant all have a purple flower here. When we crowd this, here there is a plant with true breeding purple flowered plant, which is homozygous, true breeding homozygous dominant, and here there is a true breeding plant with white flowered plant, which have a homozygous recessive. When we crowd these two plants at this plant and this plant is a parental generation, and we can get the offspring of here the offspring of the first generation or the first filial generation is all plant are what? Purple flower. All plant have what? A purple flower. Why? Because they receive at least here are one dominant allele from one parent. So when an organism is received or when an organism is received one dominant allele from one parent, we can say that plant or that organism is dominant for that character. Due to this here, when we cross these two plants, here there is RR, here R, and here there is recessive R. So when we cross these two, we can get what? RR, and RR here. Due to this here, here 1, 2, 3, 4. So all of the organism is inherit here inherit one dominant allele from one parent. So when the organism is inherit one dominant allele from one parent, we can say that organism is dominant for that characters. Due to this, the organism here, the flower color is purple at the first or filial generation or first generation of offsprings. So offspring of F1 generation or the hybrid may be purple flowered if they inherit here at least one factor. Yeah, if they inherit at least one factor, the offspring or the hybrid of the first generation, it may be what? Purple flowered, but or it may be white flowered if they inherit what? White factor from both parents. When the offspring of F1 generation is inherit both R or both recessive allele from both parents, the offspring becomes what? Recessive for that character. But when the offspring or the F1 generation is receive or inherit at least one factor for the purple flower, it become what? Dominant for that character. Let's cross this is the cross between the first generation offspring. It is not the cross between the parent. It is the cross between what? Between F1 generation. When we cross the offspring of the parental generation or the F1 generation, that means the offspring of parental generation means F1 generation. When we cross the F1 generation or solve the F1 generation, we can get here 4 plant which have 1/4 or 1 weight, which is a recessive, and 3 plants or 3 flowers which have a purple flower. But here this is a phenotypical appearance. When we see or observe the plant by the naked eye, we can see 3/4 of the plant is purple and 1/4 of the plant is a recessive, which is a white flower. But genotypically here this one is a homozygous dominant, but these two plants have what? Heterozygous dominant physically, and this one is what? Heterozygous recessive. So the plant have what? Physically, we can get physically 3 plant with a purple flower and 1 plant with white flower, which is a recessive. So we conclude that a white flower is what? A recessive, yeah, and a purple flower are what? A dominant. Why? Because an organism. So the law of dominancy is concluded that to be a dominant, an organism must be receive at least one factor from one parent to be a dominant. But to be a recessive, an organism must be inherit 2 factors or 2 allele from both parents, means from both mothers and from fathers. An organism must inherit what? 2 recessive allele to be a recessive. this is all about a loss of a dominancy. Here at the end here, sorry, the purple flower trait is dominant. Why? Because each individual who inherit at least one copy of R here, each individuals who inherit at least one copy of the purple allele capital R shows what? The purple phenotype, not genotype, purple phenotype here. And the white flower is what? A recessive. Why? Because an individual must inherit two copy. Two copy means two copy of small r to show to the white phenotypes. So here, this is a white, and there are two alleles with small r or small case. So when individual is receive two small r allele, they are what? A recessive, but it homozygous recessive, yeah? Homozygous recessive here. But we can genotypically we can get two types of dominancy. This one is homozygous dominance, and this one is heterozygous dominance. Heterozygous dominance. But phenotypically, both of them are what? Both of them are a purple flowers. So this is all about a loss of a dominancy. Let us see one solved problems. Here, this problem is for you. Just stop the video, do the quiz, and play the video again. Welcome back. Here, this is the answer. So check your answer with this answer. Let us pass directly to the second law of heredity. The second law of heredity is that a law of segregation. A law of segregation. According to law of segregation, each individual has a pair of factors controlling each trait, one inherited from each biological parent. But during the formation of a gamete, when we say gamete, it is a sex cells. These two factors are separate or what? Segregate, yeah? Segregate. So these two factors are what? Segregate or separate. Only it is ended up in each sex cell. Here it is. In this figure we can see that we have seen that in a modern term homozygous parent in P is represented for a parental generation, can pass one kind of allele to their offspring, not both. So the parental generation is pass only one allele for their offspring. That means if here they are a mother and they are a father, both fathers and the mother have two alleles, but both of them are not just passing both allele for their offspring. So the offspring is what? Receive one allele from mothers and one allele from father. At this case, the mother allele and the father allele are, since they not pass both of them allele to their offspring, so the offspring of them are what? Separating during gamete, sex cell or gametes formation. Here there is a homozygous parents, so they are homozygous parents cell. It means they are through breeding. Here they are a homologous chromosome. Here this is homologous chromosomes, and there are a locus and a gene here, gene and the locus. So these homologous parents have a two alleles here, but during gamete formation, the allele of a parental generation is here separated here individually. They are separated. So the fathers and the mother have two alleles. During the gametes for sex formation, they are what? Inherit only one allele for their offsprings. For their offsprings, yeah. This is known as a law of segregation. The heterozygous parent of the F1 generation have two alleles for the gene in question, and can pass one or the other, but not both. They can pass whether this or this, but not both. They pass maybe one capital A or one small a, but they not pass directly both of them at the same times. So during gamete formation, they can pass this one or this one for their offsprings, but not both of them at the same time. This is known as what? A law of segregation or law of separation. Law of separation. Here, the genotypes can be represented with letter, which symbolize the allele. So the letter are what? These letter are what? These and these letter are represented for what? For the alleles. The capital one, this one is represented for a dominant allele, and this one is represented for what? Small case is for the recessive alleles. And here, there is also for the white, for the recessive one also. This one is what? Represented for what? Recessive allele. Recessive allele. Here, this one is a dominant, but they are not they are not homozygous dominant. These purple flower are not homozygous dominant. They are what? Heterozygous dominant. Why? Because here they are one dominant allele, but here this allele is recessive. So they are homozygous, not homozygous. They are what? Heterozygous dominant. So let us see the results. When the gamete join to produce the F1, when the gamete is joined to produce the F1 generation, all offspring of homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive parent are heterozygous. Yeah, here all offspring are here what? Heterozygous. Here they are capital P and a small p. Here is also capital P and a small p. There is no any homozygous dominance here. All of the both of the flower are what? Purple, but the purplity is what? Heterozygous. Hetero, they are not homo. Yeah? But in the F2 generation, when we cross the F1 generation or self the F1 generation, in F2 generation we can get one recessive allele here. The heterozygous F1 individual can put either a dominant or a recessive allele in each of their gametes. Here there is this one is the sperm, and this one is what? Egg cell. When we cross the sperms and the eggs, we can get here PP, which is this one is homozygous. This one is homozygous, and here P, small p and the capital P, which is heterozygous dominancy. Here small p and the capital P, which is heterozygous dominancy, and here small p, which is homozygous recessive. So during gamete formation, the allele are segregating to each other. The allele of the F1 offspring is segregating from each other and forming here what? The one recessive alleles, or one recessive character which have a white flower. So according to law of segregation, the allele of the parental generation is segregating during a gamete or a sex cells or a gamete formation. This is what? A law of segregation. It is also a Punnett square is one way to predict the outcome of a cross by showing all the possible combination of all the possible gametes. Here, when we self heterozygous, here they are heterozygous they are heterozygous capital P and a small p plant with a purple flower, which is heterozygous for the character, heterozygous for the purplity character. When we self this individual of F1 generation, here when cross P and the P, we can get here 1 over 4 PP, which is homozygous but purple color. Here they are heterozygous purple color. Here they are also heterozygous purple color, but here we can get what? Homozygous recessive. Yeah, homozygous recessive for the character. This is all about the law of segregation. Here there is a solving single gene monohybrid cross with Mendelian dominance recessive inheritance. This is for you. Yes, this is a quiz for you. Just do this quiz and evaluate yourselves. Let us pass directly to the third law of heredity. The third law of heredity is that law of independent assortment. Yeah, law of independent assortment. According to a law of independent assortment, when genetic factors segregate in the gametes, they segregate independently of one another. Yeah, they are not segregate with one another. They are segregate independently of one another. A dominant allele for one trait does not guarantee or determine the inheritance of a dominant allele of a different trait. That means, for example, if this is just the law of independent assortment is done on the dihybrid, yeah, not on the mono, in the dihybrid cross. This is very important in the dihybrid cross. It is impossible in the monohybrid cross. Why? Because we can just determine only for one characters in the monohybrid cross, but in the dihybrid cross we can determine the cross for two characters. So in the two characters, the allele for one character is not guaranteed or determine the inheritance of a dominant for the other characters in the independent assortment, according to independent assortment of law. Here, there are organisms having multiple inheritance trees controlled by gene. Here, each trait is inherited independently of the others. Here, there are a pea plant may have, for example, have a yellow seeds here for dominancy. Sorry, there are a seed shape here. The pea plant have here a yellow for dominancy. The pea plant have a yellow seeds for a dominant trait, but here they have also a yellow treats for flowers. There are a yellow recessive flowers, and also here there are a yellow dominant seeds. So the allele of this dominant character is not determined the allele of recessiveness of these characters according to what? Law of dominancy. According to law of dominancy. Here there are a pair of allele on homologous chromosomes in a diploid cell here. A pair of allele. Here there are four alleles here. There are four alleles or two pair of alleles. So this allele is, for example, these two alleles are determined for example, this is for plant height and this is for flower colors, for example. So the flower color, the allele of the flower color is not determine the allele of the character for the plant heights according to law of segregation. So here there is a chromosome replicated and replicated homologous pair during metaphase of meiosis 1, oriented like this or like this. Yeah, they are oriented like this or like this. Trait carried on separate chromosomes sort independently of one another during gamete formation. During gamete formation, the trait carried on a separate chromosome sorted independently of one another here. Here, these and these are independent. These and these are also independent. Also here, this is independent, and this is also independent. Each of the four are what? Independently sorted to each others. And here, at the last, the independent assortment is produced for equal likely allele combination during a meiosis here. Here, there are four equally likely allele combination during a meiosis. Notice that each gamete is received here one S and one Y bearing chromosome from the original cells here. From the original cells, each gamete are receive one S bearing and one Y bearing chromosome from the original cells. This is what law of segregation. Now consider in terms of genotype. Here, consider in terms of genotype. Genotype of this parent for these two traits is what? SS and YY. It is what? SS and YY means it is not homozygous, it is heterozygous. It is heterozygous. Here, meiosis puts one S bearing and one Y bearing chromosome in each gamete. Here, in each gamete, there are one S and one Y for all. Yeah. Here there is one S and one Y, one S and one Y, one S and one Y for all of them. So the genotypes of the gamete that this parent can produce is what? SY, 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 and SY. Yeah. So they all are what? Bearing the allele with S and Y. This is known as what? Law of independent assortment. Each allele are what? Assorted independently during what? A gamete formation or during sex cells. But they are this law are done for what? For a dihybrid cross. For dihybrid cross. Here there is the Punnett square also shows the cross between two plants which are heterozygous for traits. For that trait, for example, this when we self-fertile SS and YY, this is a two character, maybe a plant height and a flower color. The two character are what? Which plant have, when one plant have flower color, the flower color of the plant is just white and the height is long or tall. So when we cross the plant character for tall and white color flower colors, just we can get here 3/4 is smooth. Here we can get here there is a seed color. So again, the Punnett square represent all possible combination for the gamete that the parent can denote their offspring. They must be put one copy of a gene for each trait in their gametes. Yeah. So this is all about the law of independent assortment. Yeah. Law of independent assortment. Here there is a problem for you. Just solving the hybrid cross with Mendelian dominant recessive inheritance. Just please stop the video and do this quiz and check yourselves how much you understand the lessons. This is all about today's lessons. Thank you for watching this video.